Okay, let's get this started. Well, welcome everyone to the first webisode of the Rural PA webinar series. Tonight we will be focusing on specifically the Northeast Pennsylvania region. My name is Danae McNatt. I am the membership coordinator for the Pennsylvania Dental Association. And tonight I will be introducing the panelists. Next slide. Oh, okay. So first we have Dr. David Scopoliti. We have Dr. Catherine Daly Owen, as well as her husband, Dr. Patrick Owen. We have Dr. Devin Conaway, and lastly, Dr. Lauren Donnelly. And all of these lovely dentists happen to work together closely every day at the Guthrie Clinic located in Sayre, PA.
Except for Dr. Patrick Owen.
Oh, except for Dr. Patrick Owen. Okay, next slide. All right, so here is just a little snapshot of what your screen should look like. I would like to ask all of you to, if you could please save all of your questions until the end, just so we can get through the presentation and we have enough time for you to get to speak with some of our panelists tonight. And just a little housekeeping. I know all of you received the email to register for the webinar. And as an incentive for attending, you will receive free KN95 masks as well as face shields. In order to receive this, you have to complete the survey at the end of the webinar so that PDA will have your shipping information so that we can send you your mask and face shields. And also, you have the ability to raise your hand for any questions. And again, I just ask that you save that until the end. Next slide. So before we begin tonight's webinar, I just want you to take a couple seconds to answer 2 poll questions that we have for you tonight. So right now I'm going to launch the first question. So the question is, have you considered practicing in a rural location? And I'll give you a couple seconds or about a minute to answer that. Okay. We still have a few more people who have to get their poll answers in. Okay. All right, I'm going to be closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Oh, wow. Okay, so it's clear that a lot of you have an interest in practicing or possibly practicing in a rural area. That's actually surprising. Okay, I'm going to pull up the next poll question. All right. This question is, how knowledgeable are you of rural Pennsylvania? And again, I'll give you about a minute or so to answer this. Okay, we still have a few more people to get in their answers. Couple more seconds left. Okay, and I'm closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay. So it's about an almost even split among all the answers. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for taking the poll. And without further ado, we will have Dr. David Scopoletti start tonight off for us.
Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to thank you for taking the time to participate in this Pennsylvania Dental Association webinar. It's been a long time coming to provide an option, an opportunity for students, young dentists, to learn more about rural Pennsylvania, rural America. My name is Dave Scopoletti. I've been practicing in Sayre, Pennsylvania, in the Northeast, in Bradford County, for 34 years. I grew up outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania. From there, I went to Wilkes College, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, went to dental school at Temple University. From there, I did a one-year GPR in York, Pennsylvania, which was what then was York Hospital. It's now WellSpan. At that time, I wanted to stay in the Northeast Pennsylvania. Did not necessarily want to go to my hometown and start from scratch. The position I'm in now opened then. I wanted to do hospital-based dentistry and practice in a rural setting. And that's what I did. And I came to Sayre, Pennsylvania, and made it my home. So the question is, what is rural? To most people who have no experience in rural Pennsylvania, rural might mean just what you see in the picture right there, a lone standing barn and fields. Rural Pennsylvania is very diverse in that we have small towns, we have farming. There's so much, but the important thing to look at is what are your interests and what are you looking for? So where I am, I'm in rural Pennsylvania, but we have a small community, 20,000 people, 15,000 people in the immediate vicinity. Just outside of the towns are mountains and hunting and farmlands. But what's important in our community is that we're also close to important highways. We're not far from Route 81. We're not far from Route 17 that crosses the state. We're 40 minutes from the Finger Lakes of New York and about an hour and a half from the Poconos, an hour from Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, the Grand Canyon. There's a lot of beautiful places. So while I'm in town, there is a bit more density in the population, but traveling a bit out of town, you get country. So if you're an outdoors person and want to hike, go to lakes, that's what Pennsylvania is. That's what rural Pennsylvania is. So if you talk about density of population, you have a little bit of both depending on where you're going. But more important for me, and maybe you, is that there's a little bit more to it. And for me, what that means is the people that we get to treat. So having been in the cities and worked for 6 years in a densely populated area, what I find most intriguing about this area and what kept me here is the people we get to work with and the people we get to treat. The respect that we get from our patients and our community members is just very different than what you get in a city or in a densely populated area, even if it's a small city. You know, you look at the map that's up right now, and really the greatest part of Pennsylvania is rural, is considered rural. There's very different things to offer in all of those communities, but I can tell you without reserve that the people we get to treat is the highlight of it. I know people's families, I get to see them their kids grow up, they're just very appreciative of what we have to offer. And if we take good care of them, it's really, you get that back in their friendship and their respect. It's just, it's the place for me to be. Their expectations are very reasonable. They don't judge. They don't judge for anything except how you treat them. If you are respectable, respectful, and you treat them with kindness and care, they will be your patients for your career. And as far as competition goes, I think my colleagues on the panel here, my friends, can tell you that we don't compete with each other. We compete with a new car, a new refrigerator, kids going to college, things like that. Whereas certainly the more densely populated area, the competition is huge. If you do not have CAD/CAM, if you don't have lasers and market them, you don't meet the standard. In rural America, if you're a decent person and you're doing the right thing every time, you're the person who they want to treat you. It has nothing to do with marketing. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's proving yourself to be one of your community. As far as rural America goes, I believe that the presenter later is going to talk about, are there more deer than people? Well, sometimes there are. Dr. Daly will tell you a story later about that. And you know, I don't know what your interests are, but the people who have come here, I believe that the other presenters are going to tell you the same things, that the people we get to treat are really the highlight. As far as wanting things that more densely populated areas have to offer, they're close at hand. So I know that when I lived in Philadelphia, it took me 45 minutes to get to an airport. It took me easy 40 minutes to get to any good restaurant that I wanted to go to a park, to go to Fairmount Park was easy 45 minutes to get there. If you put those same terms into rural America, I can get to Seneca Lake, Cayuga Lake, Cornell University, all within 40 minutes. We have restaurants in those areas. We have restaurants in town. All of those same things are available in rural Pennsylvania, and honestly, not so much farther than it takes to get in a city. One thing's different. We don't have a Starbucks on every corner, but what we do have is we have small businesses, privately owned family businesses that are coffee shops with fresh baked goods. We have colleagues who we get to know and know well. One thing that I will say is that having been in a city, lived in a densely populated area, one thing that rural Pennsylvania does not do is does not isolate you. I believe that living in a city or in a densely populated area can be very lonely. It can be very isolating. One thing rural America has is that we've built relationships with other dentists. We know each other's patients. We know each other. We know each other's families. Having someone to mentor is a big deal. And I hope that my other colleagues will tell you those same things, because I think it's important when you get out of school, especially if you don't do a GPR. The exposure you have to real world practice is pretty limited in school. So having anyone to mentor you, and it's an advantage of the Pennsylvania Dental Association. There are mentoring programs that are going to be available, even if you don't go to an area. They're going to go on to tell you later about the cost of living, the homes you can buy that are different in those settings, the kind of lifestyle you can have. So I chose dentistry for the lifestyle. I wanted to be able to live in a community, know everyone in the community, be able to hunt, fish, ski. I wanted those things, and I can do them here. The amount of expendable cash is more. The cost of living, while the later the demographics are going to talk about the cost of living, comparing rural Pennsylvania to urban settings, I don't think they tell the whole story. I'm definitely a proponent of rural America and what it can bring to your career. Danae, the next slide. Okay, Pennsylvania regions. So sorry about that. The region that's circled, we're Bradford County, in that upper left part of the circle. That whole area is pretty familiar to me, and it's very convenient. One of the things that we have in this region is the ability to get to Rochester, Syracuse, Manhattan, Philadelphia, and Boston quite easily, because literally the top of the Pennsylvania border there is Route 17. Takes you east and west. It's very accessible, not only to outdoor activities, but to cities. So my daughter did an internship a couple of years ago in Manhattan, and it was nothing leaving from Bradford County to go to be in downtown Manhattan at 10 o'clock in the morning, have lunch with her, spend the afternoon, have dinner with her, leave at 7 o'clock and be home by 10. It's not a bad drive. It's easy. We've done it many times. So living in rural America doesn't mean you have to give up what cities have to offer. And next slide, please. This is an interesting slide. So on average, rural Pennsylvania residents are older than urban Pennsylvania residents. That's, according to the US Census Bureau, I'm sure that's accurate. But I think it's going to depend a bit on where you actually choose. So for example, in Bradford County, we have quite a lot of large businesses, from Corning Incorporated in Corning, about 40 minutes west of here, DuPont, about 30 minutes south of us, a Nucor in town, Cork and Bottle, which has, I believe, makes most of the cans for beers and sodas across the country. So we have some large employers. It's something to look at when you're looking at an area, because what those larger industries do is they bring people from all over the world and bring their families. So it really is going to depend on where you are and what the employment is. Those larger employers make for a very different practice. It also brings people from greater areas. So for example, the group that we all work for, the healthcare system we all work for, has, I want to say, I think now 370 healthcare providers, multiple campuses. It's a large healthcare system. Robert Pecker Hospital, Guthrie Clinic. It's over 100 years old. But what it has brought to this community is diversity. There are people here from every culture, every ethnicity. It makes for a very interesting place to live, where you wouldn't expect a rural area to be so diverse. I can't say that all areas are like that, but it's pretty interesting. As far as the age of the population, there is an advantage to that. So retirees are people with disposable income. They get dentistry taken care of. Young families may be the ones who have a little more difficulty, and it depends on their employment and their benefits. You take an area just south of us, Wellsboro, Pennsylvania. I think later you'll see a photo of the Grand Canyon, Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. It's about 45 minutes south of where we practice. And and it's a tourist area. It's like the Poconos. It has a greater seasonal population, but there are many people who live there year round. It's absolutely a gorgeous community. It's what you think of when you see small town rural Pennsylvania photos. But the people there have come from all over the country to settle there. People who want to be out hiking and camping and fly fishing. Don't discard the idea of rural America because of diversity. I think you might be surprised to see what's out there. Next slide, please. Is that the last of my slides? I believe it is. If there were any questions now, I think Danae would like to save them till the end, but I'd be happy to talk with anyone at the end who has any questions for me. Danae, next.
Hi, so next we'll have Dr. Daly Owen take over.
So our internet is slow, of course, because it's my turn to talk. Because sometimes in rural Pennsylvania, your internet's slow. I've lived in Bradford County for 13 years. I graduated from Temple Dental School in 2007. I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, did my undergraduate studies at Penn State University in University Park, and met my husband at Temple Dental School, and he is a native of Bradford County, and so I've been here since I graduated. So honestly, when I graduated from dental school, I lived on 18th and JFK. I don't know how many Philadelphia people we have on here right now, but so I went from 18th and JFK to dirt roads of Pennsylvania. We were able to buy a house within the first few years of being out of school, and some land. The cost of living is much lower here. We have a 4-bedroom house and land, and it's more affordable than it would be if we still lived in Philadelphia. The housing is definitely more affordable. It's less than it would be, obviously, in the cities. And as the slide says, 74% of rural Pennsylvanians own their own home. There really isn't a lot of apartment living here. I would say most people are living in a single home. There are some apartments close to the hospital or, regionally, but not a lot. So,
and some rentals.
Some rentals. So continuing on, the housing's more affordable. Groceries. This is saying, so the average cost of owning a home in rural Pennsylvania is $168,000. Urban is $241,000. And I would say you get a pretty decent sized house in Bradford County for $167,000 or $168,000. With probably land, or at least a front yard and a backyard. We were pretty lucky during the COVID shutdown. At least we have places to go, land to get out. That's our own. So we're, pretty lucky to have space during all of that. We go to the next slide. So renting, like I said, is not as well. If you're renting, you're actually probably getting a home to rent. Rural renters pay, around $800 a month, whereas urban's over $1,000.
And I think that depends on when we had the gas boom with natural gas production, our rents were going up higher. But for the most part, you get a really, my apartment in Philly compared to most of my friends' apartments that were renting at the time or renting a house here, it's a vastly different in size and space.
So, and I believe the next slide. So why rural? Well, I chose rural for a couple of reasons, mainly this one, but also Bradford County is an underserved area. Also other parts of rural Pennsylvania are underserved. So when you're in an area that's underserved, there's fewer dentists, there's less competition. There are programs that actually help you pay your student loans if you're in an underserved, a dental underserved area, which is appealing if you have a lot of student loans. And so we are busy, and we're always busy, and that's good because we know we have lots of friends all over the country, and some of them aren't. So we don't have that issue here.
My biggest thing is if you were to look up any of us and you look for our websites, we don't have a website. We are luckily that we don't advertise, it's word of mouth. My friends make fun of me because they want to look at your, you always want to check your friend's website out. And we don't have one. We don't, we always talk about getting one, but we are so busy, we don't really need to advertise. We have, we were talking earlier, I think in the last 10 years, there were almost 10 different dental offices in our county or nearby that retired and dentists didn't take over. There were a couple recently that just shut their doors, and all those patients are looking for a dental home. And every day we have calls and calls and calls looking to, the patients looking to find a new dental home. And it's so different when we go and visit our friends and you see a new dental office on each corner, and everybody has their niche, what they're specializing in. And around here, you can basically, if you want to specialize or practice in one niche dentistry, or if you want to just be a general dentist, you have the total luxury of doing what you want, what you really have a passion-driven purpose for.
I think Dr. Scopoletti kind of touched on it a little bit too. Our patients know us and they trust us and they care about us, and we see them out when we're at dinner. You know, it's a nice, we live in a really nice community, and even not being necessarily from Northeast Pennsylvania, it's been a nice place to live and have a career. So I think we're moving on to, so as you can see, there are portions of our county that are underserved areas, where the blue box in Bradford County is, I believe, is just south of Sayre. But there are other portions of Bradford County that do qualify as health profession shortage areas. I think that's all for me.
So
Dr.
next we'll have Dr. Conaway, Devin Conaway, share, a little more, give you a little more insight on what it's like practicing in rural PA, as well as the advantages.
There we go. My mic was muted. Hi guys, my name is Devin Conaway. Practice in Bradford County as an orthodontist. I went to dental school at Case Western Reserve University. I graduated there in 2013. I did my orthodontic residency at St. Louis University. Graduated in December of 2015, and I've now been practicing in Bradford County, Sayre, Pennsylvania, for 5 years now. The next slide, please. So it seems to be a recurrent theme, and it is a big advantage of practicing in rural Pennsylvania or rural anywhere. It's cheaper cost of living. You've heard that from multiple presenters now. But just wanted you to think of it from a couple of different perspectives. You know, a lot of times we spend a lot of time, a lot of money going to college, going to dental school. We put in a lot of hard work. A lot of times we want to get out of school right away and live the doctor lifestyle, and that's understandable. Like I said, we've earned that. We've worked really hard. But most of us, and I would argue most of you, probably have a fair amount of student debt. And the only way you get rich is by saving money and paying down debt. You don't get rich by spending money. And so, you know, it may be more financially wise to start out with a cheaper cost of living until you get the student loans, that student debt under control. And just remember, cheaper cost of living doesn't mean a lesser quality of living. It just means you get more for your money. And that's something that, you know, that you get with rural, practicing in a rural area. Some other ways to get a control on your student loan debt is take advantage of student loan payback programs, state programs that are available for general dentists, where you could get up to 100,000 of student loan repayment for full-time service, or 50,000. And you can see on this slide that, you know, if that's something that's you know, a light switch is going off for you, there's a link there that you can go check that out more. But that's a huge opportunity for someone that's considering practicing in rural Pennsylvania. Next slide, please. Again, it's kind of a recurring theme again, something that you've heard now for a while, is less competition in rural Pennsylvania. You can see that that's, you know, roughly at least, you know, there's 1.5 times as many dentists per 100,000 residents in an urban area. And while I'm sure some of the fourth-year dental students that are attending here, imagine at this point you are starting to get a little bit of confidence in your skills. But believe me, you still need time to grow and to learn. In a rural area, your patients are going to be more understanding of that. When you make a mistake, they're going to be more likely to stick with you, not just go down the street to the next dentist. When you take a little bit more time to do a procedure, they're going to be more likely to stick with you than to run down the street to find someone that's doing it faster. When you have patients that come to you and want something done a specific way, and your gut tells you that that's probably not the best idea. Sometimes in an urban setting where you have 4 other dentists on the same block, that you know will, at least one of them will do what this patient wants, even though you know it's probably not the best idea. You may be more likely, just because of the competition, that you don't want to lose that patient, to give in to the patient's desires. And that may create a headache in the long term that's not worth, you know, the fees and the revenue that will be generated from it. So in a rural area, because of the less competition, you may be more likely to be confident in your decision and say, this is how it's going to be, or, you know, let the patient walk. That only comes with experience, and in a rural area, it's a great place to gain that experience, to gain that confidence, and to learn and to grow. Next slide, please. Again, just continuing on about other ways to save money while you get that student loan tackled and under control. Your malpractice premiums are going to be cheaper. Your business office insurance is going to be cheaper. So not just cost of living, not just taking advantage of student loan payback, not just you know, less competition. There's a variety of ways that are going to help you get ahead, get a handle on that student loans, and really start seeing your wealth grow. Next slide, please. So Northeast Pennsylvania is quite beautiful if you've never been to Northeast Pennsylvania. I will be honest, I was never to Northeast Pennsylvania until 5 years ago, or a little over 5 years ago, when I interviewed for my job. It's beautiful. They call it the Endless Mountains. We live in Sayre, Pennsylvania, but there's a lot of other beautiful areas in Northeast Pennsylvania. There's some historic, more urban areas such as Wilkes-Barre, Scranton. You have the beautiful Pocono Mountains, which is a great getaway. Lots of cabins and camping and RVing. There's even a NASCAR race there if there's any NASCAR fans. But there's also lots of things to do outside, plenty of hiking and lakes to visit, golfing, anything outdoors that you may be interested in. But also, as Dr. Scopoletti said, it's actually quite accessible, Northeast Pennsylvania, and quite accessible to get to other areas where you may want to visit some cities. It's a lot easier to get to those areas because you don't have to fight the traffic, things that you do getting in some other areas. So not only does it have the outdoors, it has the accessibility for traveling as well. And I believe that brings us back to Dr. Scopoletti.
Dr. Scopoletti, you have to unmute your mic.
Thank you. So we have some photos here of Sayre, Pennsylvania. Most are Sayre, Pennsylvania. So we have the Grand Canyon on the top left photo of Pennsylvania. It's really an incredible view. It's an incredible area. It's in the Wellsboro area. Again, 45 minutes south of us. In the middle picture on the top is the healthcare system where we all work, except for Dr. I didn't forget about you, Dr. Patrick Owen, who practices 2 miles away, and we share working with his wife, Dr. Daly. The next picture on the top right is actually in New York State. I believe that is Teganic Falls. So that is one of the gorges that lead into Cayuga Lake. The south end of Cayuga Lake is Ithaca, New York, which is home of Cornell University, Ithaca College, and probably the most diverse collection of people outside of Manhattan. Bottom left photo, I can't really tell. Is that you, Dr. Conaway? I don't know.
No, that's me. That's me. That's Seneca Lake.
That's Seneca Lake, Dr. Donnelly.
Wineries. Yep. That is one of the places that I really enjoy going when I have friends visiting, or, you know, just with my husband on a weekend. Seneca Lake has hundreds of wineries, has breweries. The lake is beautiful, and it's less than an hour away from where we live. So it's a good spot to go for the weekend. And on the lower right is a picture of, in our town, they just made, it's actually a nice little river walk. It goes for a couple miles, and when I lived in town near the hospital, we would take our dog Odie there like every night, and he loved to play in the river.
You know, there are a couple of things that I would love to add. Earlier, I turned my camera on and I got muted because sometimes it's hard not to speak. I wanted to say about housing costs. That data that were given earlier for average house, it really doesn't translate well to people coming here to live. What really translates well is if you go to Zillow or Trulia and you look for, you know, let's just say a 4-bedroom house with an acre of land. look at the pictures. Search Bradford County, Sayre, Pennsylvania. Look for what you believe to be a desirable home with an acre of land. Now look at Philadelphia or the near suburbs, Media, those areas, and look for a 4-bedroom home with an acre of land. People, what do you think the difference is in cost? Here, $245 in the Bradford County for a newish 4-bedroom home with an acre of land. Ballpark, is that about right?
Yeah.
Or even
About-
high. High.
Maybe a little high. How about suburbs of Philadelphia? 3/4?
650,
700?
750.
750?
Mhm.
That's really where you're going to get, you're looking at comparables, not the average home. You're looking for what you want to live in. That's an important way to look at, to me, for the cost of living. One thing I wanted to say earlier, and tell me if you guys all agree with this. So we have a couple of newer dentists. We have sort of 3 generations of dentistry here, in essence, right? One of the things I notice about rural Pennsylvania is that patients want, especially young families, they want to go to young dentists. That's who they want. In an urban setting, there's years before people want to see the young dentist. They want to see the guy with the gray hair like I have. Is that about right? Do you all agree? There's a difference?
Yeah, because when I was an associate, I think that people wanted to see me because I had the newer techniques, and
Yeah.
and then when I had an associate for, like, they wanted to see him as well, or they want to see Dr. Daly when she comes in. So
Yeah, it's a big difference. It's a big difference.
I would agree, because I think a lot of patients want you to stick around. So if they see that you're young, they know that they'll be with you for a long time, and patients really like sticking with the same dentist. I think that's what I've seen, at least.
It's true. It's true. Anything else you guys have to offer?
so these are my photos.
There you go.
Like, so look at that. So I guess, like, so I'm Patrick Owen. I'm a 2000 grad of University of Scranton, and then I went to Temple, graduated in 04. And up to that point, I thought I might be, when I graduated college, a lot of friends in the Philly area. So I wasn't sure if I was going to be one of those people that, because around us, people have a lot of hunting cabins and spend the time up here. I thought that I might have been one of those people that lived in the suburbs of Philly, and then just commute back and forth for hunting and fishing. And when every day when I drove from Summit Park, so any of your Temple people that live in Summit Park, and drove to the back way behind Taste Cake Factory, Fox Street, cut through the lovely neighborhood of North Philly. And the top left corner is what I kept thinking and what I'm missing. Now, these are some of the roads I drive every day. So it's kind of like, this is what after realizing, like Dr. Scopoletti said, if you're going to drive 10 miles here, you're driving 15 minutes, and that's 10 miles. Not if you're driving 10 miles around like Indore, Manioc, or any of those suburbs, like, you're in there for a lot longer usually than the 10 minutes, 15 minutes it takes you. So I wanted to move home. And so my family's from the area. We've been here since 1809. Luckily, that's our barn there, and a couple of pictures. Old farm near my parents came up for sale, and my family has over 1,000 acres right in the immediate area. So, and we all live on a dirt road and ride 4-wheelers and side-by-sides back and forth to each other's house. So it was kind of weird when Catherine moved from 18th and JFK to dirt road Pennsylvania. It took a little bit getting used to. We definitely miss some of the restaurants, miss some of those things. But like Dr. Scopoletti said, 45 minutes, you're in Ithaca, you're in Binghamton. I graduated in 04 from Temple. She was in 07. We didn't start really dating until I moved home. So for 3 years, every other weekend, I drove to Philly. We rotated the drive. And so for a little over 3 hours, you can get back and forth to Philly. but we go visit our friends in New York. You go to Manhattan, you go to Strong Island, you go to Boston, drive to Washington. Luckily,
Flight to DC.
flight to DC. Yeah, luckily we have like easy access to 3 regional airports between Ithaca, Binghamton, and Elmira. It's very close with great connection flights. And then, but we have 81. That's, you know, you get to that in 40 minutes and you cut right down through. You have Route 6 that goes like nice scenic through Pennsylvania, and you have 86 that cuts across the state of Pennsylvania and goes to New York. So easy access. So the top left is some of our beautiful scenery. The middle picture is Seneca Lake. Luckily, we have friends that are, I'm from here, so we have friends that have either live on the lake or have cottages. And we're those people that show up and hang out for the weekend on Cayuga Lake or Seneca Lake and go through there. The top right is as you go down the dirt road looking in towards the valley. The bottom left is a picture of my office on a corner. It's kind of crazy to think, but it's one of the more popular, busier corners in town. But you can see.
Well,
it's
it is
not really,
because you're there.
because I'm there. Yeah, exactly. And then that's our barn and hayfields. So I really enjoyed practicing rural dentistry, but not only like the same rule, because we do a lot of cool different procedures, and you can do whatever you really want to be trained for. And patients are very appreciative. You see them out. If you want to go to a place that you don't want to see your patients, this might not be the best place. If you want to practice here and live somewhere else, we have had dentists that live outside the area. But you will see your patients at the grocery store. They will see all around. One of my best friends of that, and we always joke around when we go out to dinner because people are always coming up and like saying hi to us and like can't wait to see you and talking to us. And it's like sometimes they ask the questions. And there's a local wing night that I had to go to, and people would show you a broken tooth and like the chicken wing still hanging out. And you're like, all right, call me tomorrow. You know, like, but it's a great place to practice and live. So these are some of the beautiful scenery that we have right outside our door. So it's nice.
And it is beautiful. It is beautiful. Dr. Donnelly, you're the more recent person to move here. What's your story?
Yeah. So
how did you end up deciding to come to the community versus Vermont?
Right. So hello everyone. I'm Dr. Donnelly. I am the newest one to the group, newest dentist. And basically I am from the area that I work in now. I'm from Bradford County. I went to Penn State for undergrad, and then I went to Portland, Maine, the University of New England for dental school, and loved it, loved New England, expected that I would stay up there because I enjoyed it so much. But my husband was a teacher in Sayre, and we made the decision to come back to the area. And I think it was absolutely the right decision for us based on so many of the things that everyone has said tonight. It was different coming back to the place that I grew up, because there's always a little part of you that maybe feels like you were a failure coming home or different things like that. But it definitely was the right decision because, first of all, I get to work with all these people who you see in the screens, and having that mentorship and not having done a residency and to come back, and I'm in my first year and a half practicing, and to have these people to work with has been huge. Like they said before, it's not a competition between us. We're all really good friends, and every single day I talk to pretty much all of these dentists and Dr. Conaway, orthodontist, to ask them questions and to go over cases, and to have people who really care and will help you is huge, as well as the patients, like Dr. Conaway kind of talked to you about. I am just starting, so there are days when I feel like I'm not sure if I did exactly the right thing, or if I could have done something different and had more success. And the patients are forgiving. Like they, you know, if you are kind to them and you tell them the truth and you tell them that maybe you need to redo a filling, or maybe something needs to be changed in the future. They really do understand, and they want you to stay. They want to have a dentist that they trust, and if you tell them the truth and you know, admit to things, faults that you might have, they really believe in you, and they're not just going to go to the dentist down the street, which would be okay because that's Pat anyways, and he's a really good dentist too. But those are just some of the reasons that I stayed. It is a small community, and that's really nice. You do see people out everywhere that you go, but it's also kind of like a family. It's nice to see those people and to be part of a community where the people respect you and you respect them. And that's kind of those are all part of the reasons that I've really, really enjoyed being here thus far, and would recommend it to anyone. Honestly, I think it's a really good place. We're close to, as everyone has said already, I don't want to keep repeating everyone, but we are close to a lot of fun things. A lot of my friends live in Philly or Hershey, and that's nothing in a weekend to go visit them, even if it's Saturday to Sunday. And my husband and I typically do that. So you get the beauty of living here, but you also have the ability to go other places as well. So I think that's, yeah, most of the reasons why I'm here.
And we're glad you're here.
Thanks.
Can I give a little lead in to Dr. Conaway, if you don't mind, Devin? So when Devin interviewed for the job here, we had kind of struggled having an orthodontist who we thought predictably would stick around and want to be in rural America, and was here for the right reasons. So when I received his CV, being the stalker I think that I am, and Dr. Daly will agree, very first thing I did was go to his Facebook page. Devin, what was your profile picture at that time? You remember?
I was holding up a fish.
A large fish in a rowboat on a lake, I believe.
It wasn't a rowboat, but it was a large fish on a big lake.
You have that smile on your face, and that was the first thing that I knew. That was a good start. And that's almost 6 years ago now, and I have had zero regrets working with any of these people. Devin, take it from there.
Yeah, I fell upon my position, my job, the area that I live in, just coincidentally. I grew up in central Pennsylvania, closer to State College, and my program director used to announce job opportunities every Monday morning. My program director was and is the editor of the American Journal of Orthodontics and Dental Facial Orthopedics, so he has lots of connections, and this opportunity fell on his desk and I decided to check it out, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Enjoy the people that I work with that you see on here, enjoy the patients, and enjoy a lot of the perks that we've already discussed. And one of the things that we haven't discussed yet is how great of an area it is to raise a family. And my wife and I are new parents. Our son is now 3.5 months old. There were requests that he be on this webinar, but he would have stolen the spotlight and no one would have paid attention to any of us. So he's not here. But it's really nice to live in an area like this, to raise children, to have a family. I do not have to worry if my wife walks my son with the stroller when it's getting dark out, which we all know happens really early now. And so if she gets out of work and walks my son, I don't have to worry about that. We live in a community where people pull together. We've had children in the area that have gotten cancer. We've had, members of the community that have fallen ill, that have had, tragedies happen. And it's amazing to see the way a community like this pulls together that would be hard to find in an urban area. So, and I have a friend right now that lives in Southern California, near San Bernardino. Him and his wife would like to have kids, but they don't. They're waiting until they move to a different area because it's not the type of area that they feel comfortable raising children in. So that's just another perspective, one that's even probably hot. It's a bigger priority for me just because of where I'm at in my life right now. So that's just something that you haven't seen on these slides yet. That's worth considering. The other thing is that as you start to have kids, and some of you may have them now, but I'm quickly learning that you feel like the days get like there's not as much time in a day as there once was. And it's really nice when you can run to the store to get a gallon of milk or go to the post office and get stamps, and it takes you like 10 minutes and you don't have to sit in traffic or, wait at stoplights when there's only like 5 in the town. Or when, everything's literally, right down the street, or like Dr. Owen already said, when you know exactly how long it takes you to get somewhere every time because there's no traffic. You can leave, you can wait until you literally, if it takes you 15 minutes to get somewhere, you can literally wait till it's 15 minutes to get there and you know you will make it on time. So those are little nuances that, are worthwhile, and that, like I said, that you don't see on these slides here.
So I have a question for all of you. Is there anything that you miss not being in an urban setting that you can't get around here, or that isn't replaced by something suitable? Anything you miss that you can't get?
I don't think so.
No.
Nothing that you can't get by a weekend visit somewhere.
Oh, the visits. I mean, there are certain things we miss about Philly, but we have a daughter, and she does take up a lot of time, so we aren't the vagabonds that we once were that travel everywhere.
I had a permanent bag packed for years.
That we just pick up, like what Lauren's doing now, pick up and go on each weekend.
Yep. I did the same thing with skiing. I would go several weekends out of the winter to Killington just for the weekend, just to ski, get a place. It was 4.5 hours from here to Killington. I could be there Friday night, ski Saturday and Sunday, come home, same thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So should we have Dr. Donnelly finish up and answer questions then?
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So I am going to tell you about the resources you can find on the ADA and PDA websites. You can probably mostly read this yourself, but there are a lot of good gems and resources there for you, and I would recommend taking advantage of them. So the ADA Center for Professional Success has, first off, it has some pretty good financial tips, and if you were like me when I graduated dental school and you were living like a student for like 8 years prior, it's helpful to have some advice before you start making your first paycheck, and where some of that money should go and what it should be used for before you get it and want to spend it. There's also some information about Laurel Road. Personally, I did refinance my loans out of the government system pretty early, and I did do it with Laurel Road. I'd highly recommend them. And even though you can have a rate reduction of just 0.25%, that's a lot when you have really big student loans. So anything like that you ever find, you should absolutely take advantage of, because it really, really does help. Practice transition, there's also information about that on there. I haven't looked into that quite as much because I did not buy a practice, but it's there and it would be helpful if that's something you're interested in. I think there's a couple more, as well as the job search tool, which I actually have used as well. So you can search different areas. Very helpful if you kind of know an idea of where you want to be. It'll give you a list of a lot of different opportunities. The new dentist page for some tips on what you're getting yourself into, and as well as the continuing education. I'm sure everybody, has been affected by the pandemic differently. Myself, I had a bunch of CE courses planned for this year that did not happen in person because just they couldn't. So I have actually taken a couple online classes through their continuing education, and they've been really great. So like I said, there are a lot of really good gems on the website. If you just kind of search around a little bit, you will typically find, what you're looking for. The Consider PA, I think it has like basically what you saw in this presentation today, a couple little facts there, as well as the mentoring program. Luckily, I work with some really great people who have helped me and are kind of my built-in mentors from where I work. But I think mentoring is a huge part of dentistry, especially for a young dentist. So if you are just starting out, I'd highly recommend checking out that page and seeing what you think. To do this all very easily without having to go online every time, just get the PDA app and you can view everything from there. So these are a couple extra things as well that are pretty interesting. What I'd really recommend is just going online, exploring the PDA resources yourself a little bit. Check out the webinars, New Dentist Guide, again, the CE, all of that kind of stuff. SoFi was definitely another plan that I considered when refinancing my loans. I liked Laurel Road better, but check it out, do your research, see what you think. And that's it.
Thank you, Lauren. Can I close up with just a couple of thoughts I have here before we go to questions? One, regarding the PDA has been really an enormous help during the pandemic. The PDA Go app and all of their resources, it's like insurance. You really only need insurance when you need them. PDA has many things to offer that you'll learn the benefits of through your career, what they do legislatively for members and especially for young dentists. But during the pandemic, it was really, it was quite important. The PDA Go app, it was the way to get information, and we needed information. We still do. Regarding practicing in rural America, one of the things I'll say, and I think we alluded to it a bit, is acquiring practices. We have so many communities in Northeast Pennsylvania that have one or two dentists, and many of them are at an age where they'd like to move on. They want to transition out. Those practices come at such a low cost and have such a benefit because the community needs care and aren't getting it. One thing that you won't have to worry about, and Dr. Owen said it earlier, is spending money on marketing. Buying a CAD cam because the next door dentist has one, a 3D printer. Not that you can't have those things, but you don't have to have them to be competitive. You can practice dentistry as healthcare and not as a test of your salesmanship, your marketing abilities. It can be without pressure. I don't know about anybody else. I have people coming to me asking for dentistry, wanting dentistry. I don't have to promote it, sell it. I just have to be there to provide them health care. And if you are hardworking and you're considerate and respectful, they will come back. They will allow you to treat them with what you want to do, what they want to do, try to find what they need and what they want and find the middle ground. So acquiring practices, I couldn't even tell you how many dentists have called me over the years saying, hey, Dave, Do you know anyone who's looking for a practice? I'm really getting close to the point where I want to retire. There are no other dentists in town. Can you help me? Can you lead people my way? There's a lot of need in those communities, and it's the way to go. I think it's really under-recognized by young people as to the value of rural communities. And I guess with that, we can open up for questions. Danae, is that correct?
Yes, I want to give a big thank you to all of our panelists. We really appreciate this and think that this webinar was well overdue. And I hope everyone here tonight gained a lot of insight and realized the importance of, practicing in rural areas. And just to emphasize or go back on PDA Go, it's definitely important to download it and stay tuned. PDA shares constant COVID-19 updates, and we all don't know when the pandemic will be over, or if things will ever go back to normal. And it's really important, especially as you're pursuing a career in dentistry, to stay informed as things are changing, whether it be legislative or whatever. And whether you just entered dental school or you'll be graduating in May, it's also a resource to connect with our member dentists, and they're there to support you and help you. Whether you're a student, you're a resident, whatever, you have the ability, even after this webinar, with the panelists' permission, you can personally DM them any specific questions. We also have forums on there where our members post job opportunities. So if any of our panelists tonight have opportunities and they post it in the forum, you will be able to see that. And with that being said, I just want to open the floor to any questions that you may have. Again, you can raise your hand and I will unmute your mic, or you can also share it in the chat box. Okay, so we have 2 questions. The first question, and any of the panelists can answer this: how does the compensation compare from the urban areas? So I'm assuming he means, how does it compare rural to urban? And any of the panelists can answer this.
I would say that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Laura.
I would say when comparing the offers that I had in New England versus here, this was the most competitive offer, the one in Sayre, and I think it's because the rural area needed dentists way more than the other areas I applied for jobs. So, they were going to offer more to get somebody to come work there. So I think it was the best offer of all 6 offers that I, interviewed for and received. And I think that we're compensated extremely fairly for the work that we do.
Okay. Next question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, as for compensation, since I'm the only, they're at the hospital, I have a private practice, so it's a little different for us with our how we pay. We're strictly, well, not strictly, we do accept one, participate with one insurance, but we pay on percentage of collections. And for the first year, it was 35% with a guaranteed salary. And then after that, it was moved up to 40% of collections. And so I know it's not off of gross, but I always told all my people that work with me and stuff, is that I can't pay you what I don't have. So based off of, it was collections, and then there are some lab bills that are usually taken out at the percentage rate. And so that's our compensation for when I became an associate, and then I carried it through for my associates as well. I know other offices in different places, but it varies. I don't know if it's much difference between urban and rural on the compensation as it changes office to office.
Pat, let me ask you a question. Do you think you take your take home, what you have to bring home is different in the community where we are? Would it be different in suburbs of a city?
Take home, I think when I initially started, it might have been a little bit, my friends in the city were making a little bit more, but I also started, I came into an office that was a 1.2 hygiene office, and then we built it up. So I was actually doing a lot of my own work, and I was actually doing my own hygiene initially, and building it up to, at one time we had 3 dentists, 3 hygienists full time. So it kind of built, it was slower, it was a little slower at first because I built it up. But now, like my friends, it's great being like a practice owner, but because the cost of living factors in everything else, but you know, you're owning my building as well as owning the practice, which I didn't realize that that was a different, when I first started, that owning the building was a huge investment, and but it was like very lucrative for investing in your own building. So I think at first, because starting off my own, it was slow, but I quickly caught up to my friends in the cities, and it's great because I don't have to, I'm not competing against them. We always make a joke about being the keeping up with the Joneses. You're like, oh, you see people pop up on Facebook and what they bought, what they've done. And around here, you don't have to keep up with the Joneses because, one, most people don't really care, but two, if you're a professional in the area, you are the Joneses. And so it's like everybody looks up to you, and you know, yeah, if someone comes in with their Prada purse, Prada so good, I don't know, whatever, because whatever's like their fancy purse or anything else, and like you know, it might be something really important to some people, but around here, people really don't care. It's like it's a bag, like a purse or, you know, clothing. It's so I know I got off tangent on that. I feel like scope, but we for the most part, I think everything very comparable. So
I just got a follow-up to the question about compensation. Can any of the panelists give an average number for compensation in a rural area
like
compared
as
to urban?
I would say, I'd say that's very hard to do. I think Dr. Owen started hinting at this, is I don't think it's so much an urban versus rural thing. Or maybe it was Dr. Scopoletti. I think there's going to be big differences just based off the type of practice that you practice in. Even within the same town or same city, that number is going to fluctuate just depending on how the practice is set up, how many hygienists they have, things like that. But I think the thing to take away is that I would argue that almost any time the overhead's going to be lower in a rural setting. The price to purchase on average a practice in a rural setting is going to be lower. The cost of living is going to be lower. And so I'd say at the end of the day, your take home, your net, not necessarily your compensation, because like I said, that's going to fluctuate more in individual practices. I think it's going to be quite easily, the winner is going to be a rural setting. I don't know what you guys think, but
Yeah, I think that it's not a simple question to answer, because I believe it sounds, when you talk about compensation, what we have here is an employment situation. It's a group practice of 370 healthcare providers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dentists, orthodontists, oral surgeons. An employment situation in a healthcare system is not the norm, although it exists in Geisinger, Mayo, Cleveland Clinic, a number of hospital settings have that, and that's a very different situation. To me, that's very appealing because I have had here retirement plan, healthcare benefits. My benefits package, and most of the people on the panel, our benefits package alone is valued about $42,000 a year on top of our salary. I can tell you that the compensation we pay our staff here exceeds, if you go to the American Dental Association's compensation surveys. So you go to their survey center, I can tell you that we pay more than the average in those surveys. When you compare what we do to a private setting, there are a lot of things in play. As Dr. Owen said, it's what's the package? How is it set up? Are there benefits? You can't take away the cost of those benefits because it's a huge deal. Dr. Daly can tell you, you know, the cost of buying healthcare versus having an employment situation where you can participate in a healthcare and a group benefit. So private setting is going to depend on how the arrangement is set up. Are you going to purchase a building, or are you going to lease a building from the original provider? But I can tell you, you're going to get off to a much quicker start in a rural setting than you are going to be in a densely populated area, an urban setting or suburban setting. If someone would like to, I guess, Danae, did you say it through PDA Go, they can DM us?
Yes, they can private message you on PDA Go. All they have to do is look up your name, and then they'll be able to message you. Everyone kind of has like a little profile, like Facebook for dentists.
Okay. What was that, Dr. Conaway?
If a DM means direct message.
As opposed to?
I was just letting you know because I didn't know if.
Oh, you were telling me.
Yes.
Oh.
I was gonna say to our, like, as we showed the photo of the private practice, it's a freestanding building, which I think doesn't happen that often. So we have a corner lot, what is it, 3/4 of an acre? And it's a freestanding building. And so that was purchased. You know, I know in cities, a lot of our friends own or rent a space in a strip mall. During the pandemic, our friend in Siesta Key was paying $6,500 a month for rent and wasn't working. And then, I mean, he's in a beautiful area of Florida, but his rent in and of itself is just, it's expensive. And so, like what Dr. Conaway was saying, you know, when you take all those things into consideration, you know, you have to weigh all of that out. So it's not just the salary, it's the benefits, it's, you know, how much it costs you to pay your rent every, you know, or your mortgage every month. And that's really what makes a big difference. And I think it's less stressful when you know you're going to have patients. We don't worry about where our patients are coming from tomorrow. They're begging to come in the door. We just don't have enough time to see them. And that's really.
And we're not forcing treatment like some of the.
Right. And yeah, I mean, they come in asking for it. They need it. It's not a sales gimmick. It's dentistry, which is really kind of refreshing, that it doesn't have to be like that.
It doesn't have to be all about the pushing treatment, pushing products.
Just to make money.
Just to make money. It's about doing the best for your patients, the best dentistry you can do for them, and not look at like, how much money am I going to make off this service? Because
it's an old-fashioned concept, is to just
you want the patient, you want the dentist around here for years, and you want that patient to be a long-term, and it is old-fashioned. Like, you care about the person as a person, not just about teeth and how many veneers and how many full mouth reconstructions, how many implants can I see here?
Yeah, I think that asking a question of professional satisfaction is a good question in this whole concept. Is asking for the attendees, when you talk to people, get a sense for their satisfaction and what they're doing and where they're doing it. Are they happy? Because you're going to do it for a long time, and I think you're going to find a lot more happy, content people in rural settings than you are going to be seeing anxiety-ridden, stressed providers in urban settings. I think it's a different lifestyle.
Okay. So we do have a quite few questions. I want to just make sure we get to all of them. So the next question for all of the panelists, and our Director of Membership, Mary Donlin, kind of touched on this. We had one attendee ask, if you were a dental student considering a rural area where you don't have any ties, what would you be looking for specifically in job opportunities? And the examples given were small practice, group, prevalence of specialists, etc.
I would say you should definitely consider if there will be mentorship, because I graduated, I did not do a residency, and then started practicing, typical. There are so many questions that I have every single day that, you know, I do reference my old dental school notes and I do look things up, but to have dentists that I truly trust and I can turn to and talk to them about cases and ask them questions is so helpful. And I think I would be really lost without having that opportunity. So mentorship, if you could join a practice with one other person, with two other people, you know, a couple people, I think having other dentists is hugely helpful. And that would be my suggestion.
I'd have to agree with that. I came in as an associate, and then when I was still talking to my professors from Temple, and I ran into a couple issues, I had an associate, but also at the dental society meetings, I would talk to the older dentists, the more practiced dentists. And so we'd sit down, and luckily our dental society is very, like, there's no competition. So we've gone to other dental society meetings, because when you go on vacation, if you can get a dental society meeting, you get, write some of your trip off. And so our dental society, at least for us, is like very friendly. And you have a case, you have a problem, you're like, hey, can you look at this? And we have a very close working relationship with our specialists. Devin and I, Dr. Conaway and I will send messages, text, talk, hey, go over cases. The oral surgeon's the same way. But I would look for somebody you have some mentorship with. My friends that started off as like opening a practice by themselves in a new area, that was a little tough. But I really think that there's a lot of practices or a lot of areas that dentists are looking to retire or slowly phase out and phase like an associate into a partnership position that I would really talk about going that way.
Yeah, I think that question gets a long answer. And I think that's really something that if someone wants to know how to assess a rural community, it's kind of what we're here for. I'm certainly available. I'd be happy to, speak one-on-one with any of you. There's so many things to look at. You can go to the county's website. So Bradford County has a website. It goes through tourism. It goes through commerce, retail. Start there. Look at the community. See what it has to offer. Look at the businesses that are there. What's there? Is there a DuPont? Is there IBM? Is there Lockheed? Are there companies that are going to bring young people into the area? It's not something you do in a question and answer. But as far as assessing, is it a place you want to be? Well, it might help to go and see some of the practices. There are certainly, through the PDA, their practice transitions group, go to see them. Meet with dentists who are looking for associates. It's a weekend. Get an Airbnb. Go into the community and see what's there. Spend one day to speak with the dentist, another day to view the community. It's really where you're going to get the most information on what's out there and what's going to be important, is to see these communities.
Great. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. So we have an attendee who says, thank you so much for this incredible presentation. I'm a fourth-year dental student who is strongly considering working in a rural area. Where should we begin looking for opportunities if these older rural dentists don't have websites? And this is a two-part question. The next question is, do rural dentists accept insurance, or is it mainly fee for service?
Now, those are two good questions.
They're good questions. So I was on Pennsylvania, I was on the PDA website for 3 years, and I'd never had anybody I've never had anybody reach out to me. Everybody that I've talked to from, it was like word of mouth. It was kind of weird that like I found out about somebody that was interested in the office, or you knew somebody that was going to dental school, or a friend of a friend. But so I would suggest a look on the website. I think they're even the back of the PDA or back of the ADA magazine. The PDA journal has something. But even if you start talking to some of, I mean, it seems weird, but if you actually just called one of the offices, at least in our area, I think people would be very like, oh, we're not looking for somebody, but somebody else is. Like, you know, we try to help each other out.
Sometimes the reps from like Benco or Patterson or Shine know who's looking also.
Yeah, that's
Your vendors and your reps are going to be a good resource for you, as well as the PDA practice transitions. But a lot of times, the best place to start are reps. They know, they have a lot of connections, and reps in rural areas cover their territories are quite large, and they have connections, you know, all over the place. So it's always a great place to start as well.
I have one thing to add to that I think is really, that I've seen over the years is, you know, there's a group of people who have the pulse of their community, and that is specialists. So Devin, you get referrals from how many dentists? Enough. So you become very familiar with them and have working relationships. The oral surgeons in our community, they know every general dentist around. They know who's looking. So I agree. I don't know if it was Pat who said, call a dentist, any of them. Call an oral surgery office and say, look, I'm a young dentist and I'm looking for a rural setting, and I'm looking for some help to find out what's available and what kind of community is. Is there any chance Dr. Smith would take the time to speak to me? And you call a rural community, and I'm betting you that someone's going to be willing to talk to you and be glad to help their fellow dentists finding an associate or someone to purchase a practice.
And it'll probably be after hours, because we're so busy during the day that there's not going to be time to talk during the day. So don't be surprised 7 o'clock at night when they call you back. As for the insurances, when I bought my office, we accepted United Concordia and Delta, and I dropped United Concordia just because the reimbursement was so poor. We kept CHIP because I don't ever want to. I think that's really important, making sure the children are covered. And we constantly are discuss. We have a team meeting every month, and my team wants me to drop Delta. Delta's a big. A lot of the employers in the area are Delta, our two main school districts, the hospital where these guys work, Lockheed, Lockheed dropped Delta. But for a while there, like, we had a lot of providers or a lot of people around us that had Delta. And when we dropped United Concordia, it was kind of, people went to their human resources and demanded that they still wanted insurance and they wanted to switch to Delta. So we had multiple employers that switched to Delta to stay at my office. Some people still believe that, oh, I can only go to that office if I have that insurance. But for the most part, we have everybody pay up front, and then you get reimbursed by your insurance. So we're collecting,
It's fee for service.
Fee for service for everything. So, but yeah,
I would say
but there are other offices in the area that participate with more insurances.
Yeah, but I don't think there's very many who participate with a lot of insurances. Most are going to pick the insurers who are their local, the largest volume. So DuPont in Towanda. So I think most dentists in our rural area are participating with a small number of insurers. Is that correct? I think so.
Okay. I did receive this question in case any of the other attendees were wondering. This webinar was recorded and it will become available after the webinar on PDA's website as well as our app PDA Go. And there will also be a PDF available for the PowerPoint presentation. So the next question is for any of the panelists. Do you envision corporate dentistry expanding into rural areas? And if so, how do you feel it would be received by the dentists in the area?
I'm a big anti-corporate dentist guy, but we do have some that are nearby. What I found has been nice is people will come to us for a second opinion. But with it being a small town, even though we do have larger cities surrounding us, like especially New York State with Elmira and Binghamton, Ithaca, Corning, what's really nice is that you get a different experience when you come to one of our offices. I mean, we usually, like, again, not looking for, hey, everybody gets full 4 quadrants, full SNRs. No, it's not going to happen at our office. It's very individualized treatment. So I think at least in our area, especially in our county, the surrounding counties, we're not going to, I really hope that I'm right about this, but I don't really feel like we're going to lose out to the Aspens or the corporate dentistry. And to be honest with you, patients that really want to go there, I don't know if I want them in my office. It sounds really bad, but it's almost like interviewing the patient to be your patient. You want patients that agree with your philosophy and how you want to be, like you want to do dental work. I mean, everybody has a dental home, and we try to make the one that's best based off the patient, not off of doing a pocketbook biopsy and find out how much money I think I can get off them.
I don't know very many rural dentists who are threatened by corporate practices. Unfortunately, they usually come back to us. It's the difference between, for what we do, we all do. I think we all feel the same, that we provide health care, and without pressure, without sales, without quotas. And I think patients catch on to that pretty quickly. And I think they're very disappointed oftentimes that what the bill of goods they expect and are promised doesn't always turn out to be that same low price. But yes, it is around here also. I mean, it's within 20 minutes of us, we have a number, 20 or 30 minutes we have in east and west of us, north also. It's not a competition, I don't believe.
Okay, so we have a few more questions to get through. The next question for the panelists is it difficult to find staff, assistants, and hygienists in rural areas?
Pat, you want to run with that?
Yeah, it is. We struggled for finding a new hygienist. Our last October, one of our hygienists retired, and we struggled through. We had a couple of people that fill in or said they were going to fill in, then last minute didn't show up. Like, that was probably the worst one. But we've had the one, our new hygienist has been fantastic, and she's excellent, and she loves being there.
We're on like some dental forums and a lot of turnover in offices that have a lot of turnover. And honestly, when he bought the practice, all the employees that we inherited in that practice had been there 25 plus years. And one is still there.
Oh,
two are still. So, I mean, the turnover, I think once you find the people that you're looking for, there's less turnover. But there's less people to pick from. And so I think I know working in both practices, we're very blessed. Our team members are really dedicated and helpful, and which is amazing. I mean, it's great to have a family or a team that's family. And
We do have an assistant school nearby. They have a BOCES program through New York State, and this is the first year that we haven't had a BOCES student with us because of COVID. But usually we have a assistant with us, and some of them they move on. They don't stay with dentistry. But we have had a couple that we've hired, and they worked for us for a while, and then they moved on, but they moved out of stopped being assistants.
there are also 2 hygiene schools
Two hygiene schools,
close by.
Williamsport and Binghamton. But I think the hygiene was the harder one to fill. Assistants, front desk. It's really, in my practice, I really want to find the right person. I just don't want a warm body. I want to find the right person. And I think that was part of the problem. But yeah, long story short, it can be difficult.
Okay. Next question. Again, for all the panelists, in a rural setting, is it typical for practices to have an in-house lab, or is that something that is typically referred out?
There's a couple of that in-house labs.
Are there? We don't.
Yeah,
we don't.
All our lab work.
Right? Dr. Lapotowski's have an office lab. We have a lab tech or a lab. He's like half mile from my office, but we also have 2 other places that like will come pick up your case each day. So like if you want to add a denture tooth there, we do also do some stuff in the office for like denture repairs, but a lot of the offices around us do not have in-office labs.
All right. And this next question is specific to or directed to Dr. Conaway. Dr. Conaway, what did you mean by getting your student loans under control? What does under control mean? Does it mean paying it off completely or something in particular?
I mean, I guess that's to each their own. I mean, to me, under control is getting it set up so that you're paying them down in the amount of time that you want. I guess for some people that may be just paying the minimum and doing that. But for me specifically, that meant being able to pay more than the minimum required so that I could pay them off early, which there are plenty of calculators and different things out there for student loans on all types of, I'm sure the PDA has one. I'm sure you can find them with any of the refinancing places. But you'll see how quickly you can, or how much money you can save by paying off student loans early. By refinancing, you'll see how much money you save. So lower cost of living means more. I mean, it gives you the option. You don't have to. You could go buy a boat with the extra money that you save on a house or whatnot. But it gives you the option to have extra money that you could put towards your student loans to pay them down sooner, and ultimately save a lot in interest, so that then you can really start accumulating wealth.
Okay. All right, so we have 2 more questions in the chat box. The next one is, for all the panelists, do you think since the options for patients are limited, is it important to learn to place implants and do more complex procedures? Do any of the general dentists place implants in their practice?
No.
Nope.
We don't, but community dentists do. It's not unusual at all. Almost always with training and appropriate training. One of the things I see with rural dentists is the tendency is to do more procedures and refer a bit less. there's certainly the ability to have it any way you want it. I don't do root canals. Haven't in 20 years. Hate them. Don't want to do them. I'll send them to Dr. Donnelly. But I do believe there are dentists placing implants in our community. It is certainly possible to do all aspects of dentistry. Do you have to? No. But can you? Yes. Is that about right? You guys agree?
Yeah, my associate, or the guy that I work for, my friends are implantologists. They're placing implants, and one of my buddies has a great course down in Scottsdale that he teaches. And so I wanted to go to that and come back and place implants. The guy that I bought the office from told me, he said, when you can do them just as good as one of the groups of the oral surgeons in the area, I'll refer to you. But until then, until you have their training, I'm not going to refer to you. And so I kind of backed off on placing implants. But very rarely do our patients balk at that. I mean, it's usually like, no, I don't want to leave your office. I want you to do it. And same thing with our with endo. I'll say, if I can do it just as good as they can, I'll do it. If I can't, then I want you to have the best treatment. And this is, if you're my family member, this is where you go. But training, like I love CE. She's completed all of her LVI core curriculum with full mouth reconstructions. I have to deliver my full mouth hopefully in a couple weeks. But we've learned, you can go and learn anything you want to. And then we do sleep apnea. We do have we have a soft tissue laser, but you can do different things, but you don't have to do it all. And I remember talking to Scope at one of the meetings and saying about like extractions, and like, I don't think you like extractions, do you?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I love extractions. I choose not to do them.
Choose not to. And I was fresh out of school, and Dr. Wayne Reed, who used to be at Temple, would come up and hunt with me. So he was in elective oral surgery, and I spent a lot of time. And I did a lot of extractions, so I thought I was really good. And I'm hot shot out of school. I can do everything. And I know they always say, like, oh, dentistry is like an iceberg. It's just the tip. There's so much more you're going to learn out of school. And I was like, nah, I know everything. But come on. You don't know, you don't know. And so I got up and taking, and Scope's like, one of these days you're gonna have one of those, taking a tooth out, and it's gonna ruin your whole day. And I was like, I'm good. I'm good. And it was a Saturday afternoon. Local township supervisor called me up. I'm in the office Saturday afternoon. I called Dr. Reed. I couldn't get a hold of him. I was having trouble. It was number 14. And at a sinus exposure, root tip, it was a bad extraction. And so I called the oral surgeon and like, well, what are you doing?
Well, number one, why are you in your office on a Saturday?
Two.
Number two, don't take out upper first molars on a Saturday.
Why are you doing this? And then that's when I realized that I want to find something that, one, I'm really comfortable with, but also stuff that you can do
and not stress you out.
And so if you like to do extractions, great, do them. If you want to do implants, great, do them. But if you don't want to do them, you don't have to feel compelled you have to do it, because there's enough specialists here that we can get the treatment to, and they can be in the best hands.
This goes back to what you both were saying earlier, and that is that none of us have ever really worried where our next patient's coming from. There's more demand for our services than supply, which allows us to, and I think that's a common thing in rural settings, that allows you to design your practice, create your ideal practice. I love doing surgery. I also know that it's the one thing that's going to run me late every day that I do it. It's unpredictable, and a single extraction is not the most profitable business model, doing single extractions that may take you an hour, Patrick, right? So I know what I like to do, and I've created it, and luckily there's enough demand for those services that I can do that.
And a referral is not a bad thing. If they come in, they want 14 out, they want an implant, and if you're not going to place the implant, or you're worried about the bone graft, or it's kind of nice and quick and easy, like, oh, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer you to the oral surgeon. We have great oral surgeons. They're going to take it out, they're going to graft it, I'm gonna make a surgical guide, we're gonna place the implant, and next time you see them, sometimes you're taking an impression for the implant. And so then you didn't have any of that stress going up through there, and you're not worried about them going down the street to the next dentist. Just because you're not placing implants in their office and they are, we don't have that stress, we don't have that competition, and it's okay to let someone leave your office to go refer them, because they will come back. Like if you refer, they're not going to be stolen if they went to like an endodontist and be shipped somewhere else, or going to like the oral surgeon and being passed off to another office.
Okay, so we have our final question for the night. And this person is actually a rural Pennsylvania native. We have one among us. Okay, so this person says, the dentist in my hometown, rural PA, reached out to me because her associate is retiring and she will be looking for a new associate. Any suggestions for questions that I should definitely ask her?
Wow. Wow, that's a tough one. Is she familiar with the community?
It's where she grew up.
Where she
It's
grew
a
up.
town. It's a town where she grew up.
Yes, it's a male and they're from their area.
Yeah, I mean, you ask all of the questions. Honestly, I mean, there's no one question. There's no small group of questions. You create a relationship with that person. To me, go home, visit with them. Spend, when we interview, y'all, 2 days of talking, right? I think that's a common thing, spending 2 days of conversation. So to me, they should be, if there's somebody who are really looking, they should be willing to give you 2 days, a day in the office and a day outside the office, to answer all of the questions. And if they're truly committed to being a mentor and not just looking to bail out on their practice, they should be willing to spend some quality time and give you all of the information you'd need. I don't think you could narrow it down to one question. What do you think?
No, if you're really looking at becoming an associate into a partner into owning the practice, it really depends on what your goals are. A lot of my friends, I'm one of the only few people of my friends that actually is in the same practice that they started in. Most of my other friends, like they started with as an associate, didn't work out, they went somewhere else. So if you're really interested in moving back that community, you want to make sure that everything is set. When I came back, the guy that I bought the office from, there are a couple, he's like, before you decide, go to the other offices and make sure that this is really the practice you want to be in. Because we did have more dentists in the area at the time. But the big thing that I really wanted, I always talk to people, is like make sure everything's like in writing, spelled out. Like a transition company, we use a transition company. And so we had everything spelled out, because if you're going to go start working at that office, it's a little bit different if it's there's an associate already there. But you don't want to, when you start building that practice of what you're putting into it, you don't want to build the profits you don't want to pay for the profits that you're putting in, like the goodwill that you're building into the office. So if you're looking at buying in the practice, you want to have that price set before you start really working. So at least you know what the numbers are going to be. So it really, if you want to be an associate compared to being a partner, procuring like the owner, I'd ask those questions. I mean, compensation, obviously, but like compensation is more than just like your insurances and payments, but it's also time off, your
Sick time.
Vacation. There's a lot of different parts that go into that, but I know like people that I've talked to about being an associate, being a partner, I had everything tried to spell right out right from the beginning. So like they know what it's going to be to become a partner and how much it's going to be.
Right. So I have something that may be an uncommon thing to say to the person who's asking the question, saying they're going into their hometown to speak with a dentist there to become an associate. This is an old-fashioned thought, but if you're from a community, it's probably the only scenario where you have such a low risk of failure and a high potential for success, and you know people are retiring, I know you're going in with debt, but if you talk to dental practice reps, dental supply house reps, I think with the least space and a small office, modestly equipped in rural America, it's probably the one scenario where you're going to have the greatest opportunity for success opening solo, right from scratch. I don't know if any of you would agree. There are very few situations where you can today open up and hang up a shingle. But that would be the one situation if you do it smartly. Don't buy the bricks and mortar right off the bat. Lease and start a small office and build it your way. It's possible, and probably going to your hometown is the only way you'd have the highest likelihood of success. What do you think of that?
I would also say if you do decide to work with the associate, you want to make sure that it's somebody that you like and that you get along with really well, because you're with them every single day, and it takes up your whole life. Like, we spend most of our time at work, so you want to make sure you're working with someone that you have the same goals as partially, and that you kind of have the same ideas about dentistry, so you're not constantly clashing with them. You have to, you have to be on the same page with that person. You have to be able to work well with that person. So make sure the actual owner is someone you like and someone you want to work with every day. Yeah.
I could give that same advice to the dentist hiring associates.
Yeah.
Hire people
Absolutely.
you want to hang around with and you trust and you like.
You might not know right away, though. You have to remember that. It takes a while. People show their true colors sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know what you're going to get with their spouses too.
Yeah.
Danae, any other questions?
It looks like that was our final question. So if no one else has a question, I'm just going to close us out.
I'm
first,
pretty
I'm
impressed.
curious.
I'm pretty impressed with how many people are still attending. I think that's
Yes,
pretty awesome.
me too.
I kept watching.
They're holding on. All right, so I'll share some of the upcoming events. First, be on the lookout for future advertisement for our next webisode number 2 of the Rural PA webinar series. And this will focus on a different rural region in Pennsylvania. The webinar series, okay. The webinar series will cover most, if not all, of the Pennsylvania rural regions. And here we just have a few more upcoming events. Our licensure webinar it's to be announced. And I would like to thank everyone for coming. The panelists, attendees. I know it's late, it's the middle of the week, but thank you all so much for being here. We really do appreciate your time as well as the panelists' time, and I hope that you gained a lot from this. And as a reminder for all of our attendees, to please make sure that you take this survey so that PDA will have your shipping information so that you can receive your incentives. I would say have that in no later than Sunday night so that we can ship that out to you next week or as soon as possible. And again, thank you everyone so much for coming out tonight. We hope you had fun as much as the panelists did. We hope
we actually really like each other, which is why this was fun.
Yeah. We hope to see you at our future Rural PA webinar event and other PDA events. So with that being said, everyone have a great night and a wonderful weekend and a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you.